Okay, so this is going to be a weird angle because I just don't want to change it every time I talk to you directly and then also when I show you stuff. So we're going to be stretching canvas today. I've already done 2 really big ones, and now I just realized this is a good time to do an instructional video on how to stretch canvas. It's something that I always make a point of teaching students, and I mean anyone who wants to know how to do it, that's an artist that works on canvas, it's a very useful skill. So we'll go through a couple things first, like stretch bars. In Lethbridge you can't really buy stretch bars anywhere, so that makes it sucky for people here. But a lot of art stores, independent art stores especially, carry stretch bars. Michael's used to, and they don't at certain locations anymore. They used to carry canvas roll, and at certain locations they don't do that anymore, but at your local art store, independent art store, whatever you want to call it, usually they will carry stretch bars and like a canvas roll, so that you can cut the canvas you need, and you can make your own, well, you can make a frame out of the stretch bars you buy. I don't have any loose stretch bars hanging around right now, so I just grabbed this. This is like some, what I call evidence, or whatever, it's from like an old piece, but just to kind of show you, when you're buying them, oh, I started to put it together already, my bad. So if you are going to buy your own stretch bars, because you can make your own too. I mean, some people use hockey sticks. If you have like a miter saw or whatever and a bunch of other tools and hardware at your disposal, you could just saw and you can make your own stretch bars, and then it's even cheaper if you make your own frames or stretch bars or whatever. I just buy mine. But I mean, they kind of look like this. So they have this beveled edge, and that is the edge that we are going to be putting our canvas on, like, over. You'll see what I mean in a bit. But they have a beveled edge, and then they have what I'm, just for the sake of using language that makes a little more sense right now, and industry language, if you want to call it that, they have male and female parts, so that you can just slide them in. You kind of have to like work them in to each other. I mean, that staple normally wouldn't be there either. But man, this is such an awkward angle. Anyway, so you would put them together like that, all the way in. This isn't all the way in because that staple's there. But you'd fit them all the way in, and you would do that, you know, all the way around, so you end up with a frame. And after that, then you can start stretching the canvas over it. But generally, I mean, the stretch bars are sold individually. So I mean, like in Saskatoon at Art Placement, extremely reasonable prices for stretch bars and their canvas roll and a lot of other things. But yeah, they sell 2 types, and that's kind of like the 1/2 inch thick, and then they also have the 1.5 inch thick, thick profile ones as well. And those ones actually have like 2 like male and female parts for you to connect them, because they're thicker and they need to be stronger, and they're harder to put together. I would suggest, and I don't have one right here because I didn't even think of this right now, I would suggest, if you were going to start doing this, to get a mallet, like a rubber mallet. It's in the other studio. So that way when you are putting them together like this, that sometimes you need to like hammer it in from a certain like angle so that they're really flush and perfect. And it gets harder once you get to that last one. But yeah, that's kind of what you'll do. That part is pretty simple, trying to put the frame together with the stretch bars you buy. You might have someone make a frame for you, which is what we just had done, and I mean Laura Lee and I, we have an exhibition coming up, and we have some really big pieces that we just cut canvas off the roll, like this thing right here. We just cut it off the roll, and then we painted it on the wall together, and then afterwards we needed to get a frame for it. So that's the other thing. A lot of the times I would stretch I would have a canvas roll, I would buy the frame and be like, okay, I want like 20 inches wide by 30 inches. Like I would just get my stretch bars, I would make the frame out of the stretch bars, and then I would stretch the canvas, and then I would paint it. It's easier for you to do it that way, because with all this paint on here, it's not as flexible. The canvas, like you have to stretch it as tight as you can. And when the paint is already on here, it just doesn't have as much give. It's way harder to stretch tightly, and you want to stretch it as tight as possible. So I would suggest, if you are gonna, you know, use your own, like depending on where you go, most times it is cheaper for you to buy the stretch bars and buy the canvas roll separately and do it that way, which is why a lot of people do it rather than buying the canvas like from the store already stretched. There are times where that might be cheaper or it's just less hassle, right? Because there's some things you're going to need when you stretch your own canvas. Like I said, the mallet would be one if you need to like hammer the frame together a little bit. You're going to need a staple gun. Obviously, you're going to need staples. This stuff isn't that expensive. I mean, the staple gun, I don't even remember how much it was, like 25 bucks or something at Walmart. Staple packs aren't super expensive. You'll need gesso maybe. I mean, when you get a canvas roll, you sometimes can get it pre-gessoed or without the gesso, just raw. And I prefer getting it raw without the gesso or the primer on it because then it's even easier to stretch that fabric over the canvas. And once you have stretched it and everything else, and then you gesso it, and then you can paint on it, it makes it way easier. Whereas what we're doing today, I mean, we kind of had to do in a way. So it just sometimes this is just the way it works, where you have what you've already painted on it, and then you have to stretch it after. So that's what we're going to be working with today. But yeah, this is just kind of teaching how to actually stretch it, the process and the order that you should do things, because there's some kind of an order that you need to follow that would make it a lot easier and make sure the stretching is even. The larger the frame, the more difficult this is going to be, especially alone. Now, there's places like at Michael's you can buy like a clamp to help you like stretch it. I've never used one of those before. I generally haven't had to because I haven't stretched anything really big. Now today, while I was stretching these really big canvases, I mean, it's like 45 by 55 inches or something like that. I don't remember now, or 56 by 40 something. Huge. Huge for me anyway. I like ended up getting like some like skin coming off my knuckles because I was like trying to stretch it so tight, and it's harder because it's way bigger. So I was like, man, if I had a clamp that would be really helpful right now, but I didn't, and I stretched it tight enough just using my fingers, so it was fine. A clamp might be useful for you, but we're going to teach you how to do it today without one. With that, I guess we'll get started. So I have this here already. Like I said, it's already been painted on. So whatever side, so let's say that if this wasn't painted on and it was just primed, and I mean if it wasn't primed then it doesn't matter which side you're going to do, but if it was primed already, you want that side face down. And then we're going to take our frame here. So this frame, and we're going to put her there. We want to kind of center it. You always have to have, like, so if I was cutting, so let's say that, like, oh, I know I want a 16 by 20. Let's just say that's what I want. I want a 16 by 20 frame. I go and buy, two 16-inch stretch bars and two 20-inch stretch bars. When I cut the canvas off the roll, I'm not cutting 16 by 20 canvas. I have to cut more because I need to stretch it onto the back. It needs to be able to go around the thick part and then on the back and give you enough room that you can pull on it tight and then put staples in it. So you'll need to do the math there depending on if you've got thick profile or these like thinner stretch bars. You might need to leave 2 inches or whatever around, or if not more, then you're actually going to be painting on. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But we've already painted on this, so we're going to be losing some of our piece here because we didn't accommodate for that enough and didn't leave like a border and stuff really. So that's just what happens sometimes. But I said there's kind of an order to this, and there's kind of not. What you want to do, and this doesn't matter how big or small it is you want to start at the center. So it doesn't matter which center you start at. It doesn't matter if it's the smaller part or the longer part. I mean, it could be a square you're working with. It doesn't matter which center you start at. But once you start at one end, you're going to go to the other end right away. So if I start here and I staple this first, I'm going to go to this center piece next. Then again here it doesn't matter, but we need to do one of these next. So if I do this one, then it's going to be that one. And then after that, we're going to work from the outside in. So then we're going to go to not right in the corner, like not right here, but we're going to get really close. So if I go to this corner, well, now I'm going to this corner. And then if I go to this one, then I'm going to this one. So we go opposites from where we start every time because we're pulling the canvas tight as we're stapling. And that means that we need to just make sure it's even, basically is the whole point. To make sure that it's tight and that it's even. If we do it all on one side and the other side, it's just going to look like a mess. So let's start doing that right now. So the way that I tell people when I've taught students before, it's really difficult, I think, when you start to pull tight. This first one you don't need to pull tight because there's no resistance on the other side. But we want to make sure we're lined up enough that we have enough room on all sides that we can pull tight, so we're good there. So this first one we don't really need to pull super tight. We want to make sure the staple gun is very, very flush with the back here. So if you had a really big canvas, you'd have to move around the canvas, but because this is small enough, you can just flip it around. And there we go. So now, because we have that stapled there, again, we're doing the opposite side, and we need to pull really tight. So, again, we don't have a clamp, so you can do it more than one way. If it's a smaller piece of canvas, or a smaller frame, I've told students, like, okay, you take your thumb and your index finger, and you're pinching it, and the rest of your fingers are pulling, like this is pulling this way, and your fingers are pushing down into the frame. So your fingers are going this way, your thumb and your index finger are going that way, so you are pulling it like this, pulling it tight. Now this is a little bit bigger, which is why my knuckles hurt right now, because I need more strength from this. So I'm digging my knuckles in and I'm pulling this up. And then you need to hold it, and that's always something a lot of people have trouble with. Once you pull it as tight as you can, you need to hold it there, and you need to hold it with one hand, because your other hand still needs to staple this. So again, we started there, and we came over here. Now it doesn't matter which center piece we start at, but we need to do one. So let's do that. Now it's going to be harder for you to see it there. I could have worn like the head cam. I just realized that might have been better, but oh well. Once you pull really tight, you can see the canvas start to shift towards you a little bit. And that'll happen in the first couple staples, and it won't happen much later because you've already stretched it as tight as you can go. If it's too loose, you might see ripples. If it's too tight, you might see ripples. The way you would in like a t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like that. So now that we've done the centers, we're going to do the corners. Like I said, not the very corner, not where the stretch bars, I guess, meet, but close to it. So, like I said, we're not going to do right here on this line. We're going to pick one side or the other side. So, again, it doesn't matter which one we start at. Once we start at one, we're going to the opposite end. So, here we go. So I'm going to do this one, which means I'm going to go there next. I would not be concerned about pulling too tight, because if you're doing this by hand, I don't really think you're capable of pulling so tight that it's going to ruin things. I've never pulled so tight that it's ruined it. However, if you don't pull tight enough, that can ruin it, for sure. So we kind of did those corners. Now we need to do these ones where it's loose. Again, it doesn't matter where I start. We're starting on a new set, so let's start from this side. It's always handy to have a pair of scissors or something. So if you get a staple like this one that I just did, so if you can see here, this staple, it sticks out a little bit. It wasn't completely flush like this one is. It's not bad enough that I need to take it out, but If I did need to jimmy it out, I just get scissors and I just like pry underneath and pop it right off. So those are always handy too. Anyway. So we finished that set, now I'm on a new set. I've already got this one over here. I may as well keep it here before flipping it. Okay, so here I need to say, we've got these sections here that are coming up. We are going to staple those down. The bigger the canvas, the more staples you need. However, more staples does not equal better. The smaller the canvas, the less staples you need. If someone's told you, oh yeah, the more staples you get in there, like the more sturdy it is or stronger, that's gobbledygook, don't listen. You need more staples, the more, like the bigger the canvas is. That's true, but there's a limit. So with this one, I will need to do, so we've done the center, and then we've done the corners, and now I will need to do in between there and put these down. But for a smaller canvas, like let's say this one right here, you don't need to do these center ones at all. It's way smaller. You just don't need it. You can see here they're not really bubbling up that much. Like we've got the centers done, and then we've got the corners, and that's it. That's all you need for smaller canvases, and you will know over time, you know when you need something. If it bubbles up like this a lot, then you're probably going to need another set of staples. So now we're going to go in between. And then I need to teach you how to fold the corners here too. But we're going to go in between our center and corners now. You're still trying to pull tight, but you're not going to be really changing that much of what you've already got. The first couple stretches are the most important ones. The first ones that you have to pull really tight on. That's where it gets kind of to what it's going to be, and it's not going to change much. You still want to pull tight, but it just doesn't need to be as crazy as it was before. Okay, so now I could choose to do the centers here. I think I'm going to, by the centers I mean like in between the center staples and the corner staples, so let's do that real quick, just because this is a bigger canvas. Okay, now we need to talk about the corners. So, the corners, you can do them any way you want, but you need to tuck them in and you need to staple it because it can't just look like this, right? I will teach you how I do it. Other people do it different ways. Other people think things look better or prettier or whatever. The way that I learned the first time is the way that I still do it. So, what I like to do is make sure that I don't know what to call it, the pocket or whatever is facing the same way. So I just realized that this is pointed in a weird way. So you need to put that in, you need to fold it back so you can staple it, but it'll look like this here. Now I like to have one that's facing down and then the other one here to face up towards it. So if it was like an arrow, it would be an arrow this way, an arrow that way. Some people fold them so that they're straight. Mine kind of have this like arrow thing going down. That's just the way that I like it. But I think it would look really weird to have them not going towards each other. So if this one is like that, if the other one was going down too, I think it'd look super weird. But that's just me. So anyway, we're gonna fold these now. Again, like camera's at a weird angle, so you take this flap, you kind of put it there, you fold the excess part over here, and then you want to staple this in. You don't have to pull super hard because you're not trying to tighten the canvas anymore. It's as tight as it's going to get at this point. You are just wanting to fold this back so that it's out of the way. way. It's going in the direction we want. Boom. If there's a lot of excess, some people cut it off, or you can maybe staple it twice. I think it's fine the way it is right here. So because I folded that one that way, I want to fold this one up that way. Again, you're just looking for consistency when you're doing these corners. You can definitely look up other ways of how to do the folds or the creases or whatever you want to call them, but again, this is just how I do them. Okay, and that's it. So there is our stretched canvas. I don't remember the measurements of this one right now at all, but it's a decent size. So we can see there's no real like wrinkles and stuff that we don't want there, that aren't a part of things. It's stretched tight enough, for sure. And the one thing I will tell you, if you ever have an incident, and this is good just knowledge to have, and it has nothing to do with stretching canvas necessarily, but it's about canvas and how to fix stuff. If you ever have an incident where maybe you are leaning your canvas against something, you're transporting it somewhere, or it's in storage, let's say something is poking it, like that, and it stays there for too long, then it will stretch this area and it will stay like that for a bit. And all you need is a spray bottle with water. You just give it 1 or 2 squirts on the back, and then the canvas should tighten up. If you squirt it too much, it'll tighten up too much and it may not relax. So just 1 or 2 squirts in the area where that kind of like thing was leaning against, if it like was poking out or whatever, and that should be it. So anyway, that's stretching canvas. It doesn't take super long. So obviously once you know what you're doing and you get into a rhythm, it can be really quick. Again, it is pretty cost efficient usually, which is why a lot of people do it. Also, sometimes, I mean, like people make their own stretch bars because the stretch bars they find in stores aren't accommodating to exactly the sizes they want. There's a lot of different reasons people stretch their own canvas and make their own frames and stuff like that. And yeah, there you go.